And right now at 10:30, more insight and analysis of a fourth and final GOP debate in the running for the next presidency of the United States. 4 Republican candidates took the stage tonight, even though 6 are still in the running. Former President Donald Trump hosted a closed-door fundraiser in South Florida. And then former 2-term Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson did not qualify for this debate. So here are some of the fiery moments from tonight.
That is what Nikki Haley opposed. She said the law shouldn't get involved in that. And I just ask you, if you're somebody that's going to be the president of the United States and you can't stand up against child abuse, how are you going to be able to stand up for anything? That is the truth. We have it on video.
I said that if you have to be 18 to get a tattoo, you should have to be 18 to have anything done to change your gender.
You said the law should stay out of it.
You do this at every debate.
I'll tell you exactly what I was.
Don't interrupt me. I didn't interrupt you. Okay? You say this. You do this. You do this at every debate. You go out on the stump and you say something. All of us see it on video. We confront you on the debate stage. You say you didn't say it, and then you back away. And I want to say
what I said, Chris.
I'm not done yet.
Yeah, here with us now 2 political science majors at the University of North Florida sharing their perspectives after watching tonight's debate. Excited about this.
Yes, so Ashley Skinner, sitting next to Kent, is a junior at UNF, a double major in poli-sci and history. She's a Republican, originally from Virginia, where her first job was working on a state government campaign. She also interned with the Republican Party. Bethany Luktama, she is between her junior and senior years at UNF, double major in poli-sci and English. Bethany's a Democrat, originally from South Florida, but she changed her address to Jacksonville so she could vote here locally and really become immersed in local politics, which involved becoming a volunteer during one of the big mayoral debates between Donna Deacon and Daniel Davis.
All right, so we're going to start here. Earlier tonight, our political analyst, Rick Mullaney, right at 10 o'clock as we were talking with, said he was struck by the lack of focus on serious policy issues and that it was really personal right from the start. So why don't you start with us? What stood out to you? That stood out to Rick. What stood out to you?
Well, that definitely struck me, that there was very much so a lack of actual substantive information and a lot of finger pointing and attacks. It kind of felt like I was listening to children instead of actual presidential candidates. But I couldn't believe it. But I liked that they brought up fentanyl as an important issue, especially it's facing our generation. That's really dying, and I think that it's important. And I'm glad they brought that up on the presidential debate stage.
It's really interesting because Kent and I know that you did a paper on fentanyl. You studied fentanyl and did a lot of research on it for a couple of months.
Yes.
So did you like what they had to say about the border and Mexican cartel?
I thought it was very interesting. I actually particularly liked what candidate Vivek had to say, especially because he wanted to focus on the domestic side and how it's a domestic issue in the demand. And I thought that the other candidates had too much of a really forceful issue with Mexico, especially since the fentanyl is being smuggled in by majority of American citizens through legal points of the border. And I felt when they started talking about a border wall that they were switching their perspective from fentanyl onto immigration as an issue.
Right. Bethany, we want to hear from you.
So you also wouldn't agree that in the debate that when they mentioned having a border that would stop anything or distribution of fentanyl because people are doing it legally. Americans are bringing it in based off of what you just said, right?
Absolutely. Americans are bringing it in through legal points of entry. If anything, we should be strengthening,
there wouldn't be a good point.
At our border security and screening. Screening is very important for combating fentanyl, and I didn't hear any of that about screening on the debate stage. Actual congressional money and research is going into currently on border security and screening that I think would have been very important and interesting for the candidates to bring up, including their perspective on that, because it's a huge part of the budget.
Now, Bethany, we were also talking about inflation and, young people being able to afford housing. We heard that come up during the debate.
Yes.
And you feel very strongly about that.
Yes, I do. I think me and all other people who are included, in the members of our generation, a lot of the time, with the presidential candidates and a lot of the other candidates that we've seen in the past, they are talking about inflation and they're talking about the debt, but they're not giving us any viable solutions to this issue. And I know that currently with what just happened at the presidential debate when they were mentioning it, they brushed on it. They didn't really talk about any way to combat the cost of living, me not knowing if later down the line I'll be able to even afford a house, because it's just been, in recent times, just inflated, and there's not really a lot of access to being able to get, these essential and basic necessities for life.
Yeah, so one of the things that you both told us prior to the debate, hey, going to be watching on some of the foreign policy issues. We know Nikki Haley, former UN ambassador. And tell me, Bethany, why don't you start? What did you see there that was meaningful to you when it comes to how they want to address foreign policy?
So I don't think there was a lot of things that I could say that I took away that was meaningful. I think I don't agree with the stances that we've been taking as Americans regarding Israel and Palestine. I think that we have been funding a Palestinian genocide, and that this is something that we need to make sure that we're listening to our constituents about this, because we see that 60% of Democrats don't agree with what's going on, and they actually believe that we should be neutral and take a ceasefire. And about a third of Republicans believe the same thing, that this is not a situation that America should be taking a stance on, and we should remain neutral and take a ceasefire.
And Ashley, what do you think about what was said tonight?
I thought, I kind of agree with Bethany that very little of actual substance was issued. I believe that they used the foreign policy issue as another thing to just attack each other with, instead of making actual statements of substance that would have been especially helpful, especially towards former Ambassador Nikki Haley, which I thought was interesting because it seemed like she would have the most experience to really talk about and really contribute to that conversation. So I was sad that we didn't hear a lot of too much substantive issues, especially addressing Americans' main concern, which is money that we're sending over.
Before we wrap up, we've got to get to a final question that's important to us. We want to hear about.
We definitely do. So there was a new Harvard Institute of Politics youth poll that came out this week. They talked to 18 to 29-year-olds who really don't seem as committed to voting as they were 4 years ago. Only 49% said they definitely plan on voting in next year's presidential election, which is down 57% from this time in 2020. Is this something that you are really seeing among other college students? And is it?
Yeah, this is something that's prominent amongst our college campus for sure. I can say at UNF there are students, and I had this conversation with my professor where I was like, I think that with the progressive Democrats that we have in the base, they're consistently voting for Democrats. And we know that this demographic is younger voters, right? So I think that with younger voters consistently voting for Democrats, we have other people in the base who aren't as progressive, and they also are young voters. And I told him, I was like, oh, well, they're just still gonna vote with Democrats. And he was like, well, Bethany, you're thinking about this in a political science way. There's another way of thinking about this. They don't vote at all. If they don't like the options, they won't take the effort and actually go out to the polls and vote, because it would be a waste of time. So I think that with the candidates that we've been presented, there hasn't been given any people think that these candidates are very unfavorable, and so they're not gonna take the time to go out and vote. So I think that is a lot, speaks to a lot of what's going on in college campuses. Yeah.
And you agree?
I agree that people are definitely fed up with having the same choices, and they feel like they aren't going to be actually making much of a change when they vote. And I think in particular with the Republican Party, that the Republican Party, as someone who worked in the Republican Party in a regional aspect, they don't reach out to young people. They don't reach out to young voters. They don't focus on that as a completely new demographic. There are young Republicans. They're there. They're on college campuses, and they aren't being reached out to or used as a great voting base like they should be focused on. And they feel like if they vote, it won't really do anything.
I'm going to guess that the two of you are going to be voting next year, though.
Absolutely.
Yes. I love some of the passion there. Obviously, political science is something that you're both interested in, but we love hearing your perspective as young people who are getting ready to vote here. So
Quite
thank you.
interesting.
Yeah.
Ashley Skinner, Bethany Luktama, thank you both very much for being with us tonight.